The contents of this interview, or from Awake and Empowered Expo LLC from Ethan Fox and Flower of Life Center for Human Evolution, is for informational purposes only and does not necessarily reflect the viewpoints held by these organizations or individuals. Always consult with your doctor or health professional before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or prescription drug use. Please understand that you assume all responsibility and risk for the use or misuse of this information.
Welcome to Awake and Empowered Radio. This is Ethan Fox, and I'm here with my co-host, Jeffery Jaxen. Today we have a very interesting interview with high vibration sound healing expert and transformational leader, Mark Romero. Mark gives us a very hopeful look at the future of the world and how through the power of intention we can change our world and improve our health and spiritual and psychological well-being. He also shares some really mind-blowing experiments he has done that demonstrate how changes in the present can actually influence the past. Other interesting topics include his work in harmonizing genetically engineered foods and how to charge water and food with high vibration energy to strengthen the mind, body, and spirit. Mark also plays a custom musical piece during our interview that you can use immediately to create positive changes in your life. Now let me tell you about who this amazing man is, and then I'll let him fill you in on the rest. Mark is a channel for energy that eliminates negative influences in the environment and creates a field where we can operate at optimal levels. By eliminating the static and noise in our lives, we can then effortlessly break free of the negative influences in our environment and of the limiting thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions that are holding us back from the life we truly desire. Mark has helped thousands of people experience instantaneous healings and shifts in their perceptions through the energy embedded in his music. Mark, welcome to the call. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. As you know, I'm a huge fan of yours, and I use your music at my spiritual events, and we do sell quite a bit of it as well. It's here in Michigan, at least, there's a huge demand for your music, so a lot of people are looking forward to you being at our expo this October. But there are a number of people, and at my events I talk about you and your history a little bit, but I would like it if you could give us the longer version of, which I know you have a very, very interesting story of what brought you from the corporate life to playing music that uplifts the consciousness and has a variety of other effects. So if you can give us a little bit of background about your journey to where you are now, that'd be great.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. I'm looking to coming out and connecting. It's been a while since I've been out there. Actually, part of my past life, which, I'm a recovered corporaholic, former CEO, executive manager. I was in the high-tech semiconductor business for 19 years. And I think with like many of us, we get presented with a model. We're told that we go to school and we get out of school and we go get a day job and we begin our ascension up this thing called the corporate ladder or the business world. And the higher that you go up the ladder, the happier, the more money you'll make, you'll have all the bells and whistles and eventually reach that ever elusive nirvana successful business world. And that was the model that I had bought into. And over the course of 19 years, had worked my way up this ladder and found myself at the top rung. And I had, the home in Southern California, the shiny car, the portfolio, all the things that we're told that we're supposed to do to create a successful life. The only problem was I was anything but happy, anything but content, anything but fulfilled, and really anything but healthy. And it all kind of, for me, hit the head when I came home one night. My lovely wife, Lara's in the hallway, and she's got a look I see commonly through the years now is, I'm going to hit you with some truth look. Here it is. Take it or leave it. You might not want to hear it, but I'm going to say it anyways. And she just got up in my face and she just said, you know what, really what she says, I don't give a damn how much money you're making. I look in your eyes and you're dead. When are you going to have the courage to go for the dream? And like any good husband, I wanted to argue with her and find fault with what she said. But like any really good husband, you realize, what's the point? You're wrong. And after, 12 years of marriage, there's a trend that's definitely not in my favor. But she was right. I mean, she hit it on the head. And what I realized that night, what really kind of came to light was, ever since I was a young kid, I had a dream. I had a dream that I wanted to help people and support people on their journey through life. And with, like many of us, we're told by our parents or society to be responsible, or you can't, make a living doing that or whatever. And we put our dreams and our passions on the back burner and we go get a day job. And so that night, she was right, because my level of discontent was exceedingly high. And the next week I went out and I told my partners, that's it, I'm out, I'm done, I'm resigning my post. They thought I was crazy. And in 2002, I began what Joseph Campbell so eloquently calls the hero's journey, because I'd been getting the calling for at least 5 years before I left to leave and pursue my dream. But, it's hard to leave. It's hard to leave when you're experiencing what you think is success. And what I came to realize is that it really wasn't. And that I needed to go find myself and discover who and what I was and what my gifts were, and to bring them forward to support people on their journey through life. So I took the leap, plugged my nose, and took the dive and the plunge. And it's been an amazing journey ever since. And that's 11 years ago now, which is just hard to believe.
Oh, that's an amazing story. Well, it's interesting about that, and I talk when I speak in front of audiences, I talk a lot about how we have a tendency as a society, we've been conditioned to believe that the dream, or the American dream in the case of people who are in the United States, is to do a certain thing, to go to college, get a degree, and then sit in a cubicle in corporate America for the rest of our lives. But I find that so many, one of the questions that people ask me the most is, how do I find my life purpose? And I think it's as simple as, because a lot of people are very unhappy, and I think it's as simple as going within and figuring out what it is that gives you passion. But so many people are really afraid to take that leap of faith and do something that's outside of the norms. And not all of us have wives like yours to straighten us out when we when we get off track. So I see why you wrote a song about her, or titled her, in your CDs. So it makes a lot of sense. So tell me a little about, or whatever you want to share about how you actually made the transition. I know, again, your wife was involved in that as well. She seems to be the one who actually is the one who's responsible for getting everywhere in life. But
well, she certainly was a major influence in, helping me open up. Go figure, the corporate guy marries a doctor of metaphysics.
Yeah.
And, I tell this story. I said, yeah, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and there she would be sitting up in bed with her hands over my head, doing this motion, open his mind. And I'd go like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just getting up and going to the bathroom. So, it was like, she would always push my boundaries, which was great. And, and I honor her for that, because she really was. There was an aspect of me that was in the spirituality and getting an understanding of life, without a doubt. But there was also a definite line that I didn't like to cross, where it made me feel uncomfortable, and it was hard for me to process beyond that. And she really did help to push my buttons, so to speak, to move beyond those things. She introduced me to EFT and breath work and stuff, before all those things were cool things. Nobody was doing EFT, 13 years ago, and breath work, and I would do these like shamanic breath work things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought it was way out there, but yet there was always this aspect of me that was, yeah, okay, I'm curious to learn this. So absolutely, she really was a catalyst in getting me to move forward, and has been just a tremendous support. And I'm very grateful to have a partner like that. And she definitely kicks and prods me when I need to be kicked and prodded, and so I've got some bruises over the years.
So when did you start playing this music and come to the realization that there was something unique about it? I know there was some involvement with NASA and so on, and so if you could tell us that story, I think it's a very, very interesting story.
Absolutely. Well, I started playing, guitar, I think like any kid does. I went to go see Pink Floyd in concert, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm mesmerized, and told my dad the next day, harassed him for the next week, about getting me a guitar for my birthday. And he got me a little Yamaha acoustic guitar, steel string thing, and started playing that thing, and it was love at first strum. So even throughout my whole career, I played music. In the morning, I'd get up extra early, I'd play. I'd get home at night, my roommate played bass. I mean, we would jam for hours, just play. I used to have the best concerts in the safety of my bedroom at home. I never had the desire to share my music. In fact, I was terrified about the concept of playing in front of people. I could speak in front of 1,000 people, love it, like a fish in water. Put a guitar in my hand and 2 people in the room, and I became this like nervous, shy kid. But, it was something that I wanted to do. So when I got out of the corporate world, I had a neighbor that played drums, and he said, hey, you've been talking about making a CD. Let's make it. He goes, I'll produce it. I got a guy who can record us. Let's do it. And I'd always had this dream of going into the studio and recording an album, seeing the lights and the dials and all that cool stuff. And so we went in and we produced Sueños Infinitos and came out with it in 2002, not with my intention of selling them, not with my intention of becoming a rock star, and certainly not my intention of doing, transformational energy work through music. That was not part of the vision. So I came out with the CD, and I had 1,000 CDs sitting in my garage. Back then you had to run 1,000 to get a full production run. And so I would give them away to friends and stuff. And shortly thereafter, my wife had a friend that ran a wellness center here locally in town, and they were having a little open house. And she said, hey, you know what? They're having an open house. Would you go play? And I said, sure. So I go and I play for them. And after I'm done playing, the woman that runs the center comes up to me and she goes, oh my gosh. She goes, I hear these tones in your music. And I'm looking at her, I'm like going, man, this lady's going to get weird. I could just tell. And right after I thought that thought, she got right up in my face and she goes, and nobody can hear the tones but me. And so I'm looking at her like going, yeah, okay, I knew it. And my response to her was quite honestly was this. I said, you know what? I heard some tones too back in the 80s, listening to Pink Floyd, hanging out with my buddies, watching the lava lamp. I mean, we heard some tones. And she goes, no, I'm serious. She goes, let me get a CD. I want to give it to these scientists that I know. So I'm like giving her a CD. Here you go. Maybe she'll go away. Won't bother me anymore. Won't push my comfort zone. Didn't think anything more of it. And shortly thereafter, literally within a couple weeks, I get a call from a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ronald Jones, who was a former consultant in NASA. He actually quite an impressive resume. He was a microbiologist, a quantum physicist. He had consulted to several different presidential advisory boards for science. He was on the team that helped develop the MRI machine. He was actually also a very talented energy worker. And he called me up and he said, Mark, man, I'm so excited, to get your music. He said, we've been doing some preliminary studies on your music. We want to invite you to this lecture. Bring your guitar. He didn't tell me anything more. Gave me the date, location. So I show up there thinking I'm going to play music during donut time or something. I had no idea what I was going to experience. And what I ended up experiencing was really a crash course in Energy 101. I'd never heard about quantum physics. I'd never heard of, us being something more than bone and muscle and all the traditional physical things that we've been told that we're made of. And here I am getting this information that no, we are extensions of a magnificent field of energy that is unlimited in its potential. And what we see in the mirror, who we see in the mirror, is the tip of the iceberg of who and what we really are. We are magnificent expressions of the quantum field, of this field of energy that is unlimited in its potential. And what they were addressing in this discussion was that, unfortunately, humanity, with all its wisdom, has dumped over 80,000 man-made chemicals into our air, food, and water. We have literally penetrated every aspect of our lives with discordant energy frequencies such as chemicals, fluoride, chlorine, smog in the air, all the different things that we're exposed to that have gone into our food, our water, the air that we breathe, every aspect of our lives. And as if that wasn't enough, we've also surrounded ourselves with a tremendous amount of electronic technology, the latest cell phones, pads, computer systems, Wi-Fi, EMF signals, all these things, electromagnetic fields being produced by our electronic technology. And if that wasn't enough, now in the United States, we virtually have installed smart meters on every home in the country. We're in the process of doing that. And that's basically like having a small microwave burst radiation being projected through your house that's relaying your energy consumption back to the power companies. So we literally have submerged ourselves into this electrosmog chemical haze in the modern day world. And what they were able to determine in their studies was that all this stuff, everything that we've surrounded ourselves with, has literally created an environment of static and noise, disconnecting us from this most magnificent field of energy, causing stress, causing compromised health and well-being, causing lower levels of consciousness. Basically, it has put us into a state of disharmony. I always say this, I could be the best guitarist in the world and play the most masterful chords and notes and strums and a beautiful piece of music, but if my strings aren't in tune, it doesn't matter. I'm never going to be able to create what I truly have the ability to create. And unfortunately, we've been put into a world where we are in a state of disharmony. And no matter what tools we use, action steps, whatever, being in a state of disharmony, we struggle to create what it is that we wish to create in our lives. So at this lecture, they're demonstrating how things we use every day are compromising our physical strength through applied kinesiology, through strength testing, range of motion, flexibility testing. They have people who couldn't reach the floor because of lack of flexibility. They had this guy who was like a former football player, strong guy, one of these 7% muscle guys, and he's going weak with a cell phone in his field, or a cloth with furniture polish, things we use every day. And I was like blown away. But what really blew me away was halfway through the program, they go, "Mark, come up here and start playing your music." So I start playing, and I see people have instant physical shifts in their energy, instant increases in strength, flexibility, endurance, coordination, balance, all these physical factors right there. And quite honestly, it kind of freaked me out. I mean, it was really beyond my comfort zone. And so I kind of went home that night, not really sure what I had experienced. I had this little red light flashing in my head calling, saying does not compute, does not compute. And I really didn't know what to process or make of this whole experience until really a couple weeks after that event that Doc Jones called me up and he says, "We're really excited." He said, "Your music contains frequencies that can cancel the negative effects of energy interrupters in our environment and restore harmony to the biofield and enhance our connection to the field." And I said, "Okay, well, what does that mean?" He says, "Well, when your music plays on a physical level, when an organism enhances its connection, it's going to have an instant increase in strength, flexibility, endurance, coordination, and balance." He said, "Then through brain mapping, we want to see a shift in brainwave activity where the brain is actually shifted into a state of peak performance that we had identified with athletes in the zone." He said, "But thirdly, and most importantly," he said, "your music helps to create these physical shifts, the results in the brainwave activity, but it also maintains those states when people are being exposed to energy interrupters." I said, "Listen, Doc, I really don't understand what we're talking about here." He says, "Well, what it means is that we want to buy 1,000 CDs from you and start selling them." I said, "Well, that I can relate to. I'm not so sure about all the other stuff." So this was when I launched Mark Romero Music and started doing music to help people restore harmony and balance in their lives so that they could open to higher levels of health, vitality, reduce their stress, and open to higher levels of consciousness.
That's a very, very fascinating story. I've told the abridged version of that many times, but the longer version is much more interesting. Do you know, well, I'm sure you know, can you tell us how it is that the music is working exactly? I mean, what is it about the music that is causing this effect on the physiology and psychology as well?
Well, here's the interesting thing. For years I thought it was the music. For years I thought it was the guitar. And over the years, what I've come to realize is that I'm actually doing a form of energy work. And I'm using the music as a carrier wave to convey that energy work. So it's not the music itself. There's this whole field of sound therapy where, there's notes and tunings and specific types of Phrygian scales and different things that we can use that have an impact upon the body and the mind and the brain. And that there's certainly validity in that whole field, but this is more about this energy that's coming through the music. So in essence, we have a field of energy, a biofield that surrounds us. It's the last form of energy before we actually manifest into physical form. Everything starts as energy. The physical form is an expression of our energy. So what has happened is that we've literally poked holes in our biofield from all the things that we're exposed to, chemicals, the different things in our environment. Wherever there is disharmony in our biofield, it will outpicture in your physical health, your physical well-being. But what I've also come to learn is that it outpictures as disharmony in our lives. The outer world is a manifestation of who and what we are, including our physical body. So in essence, what happens with the music is that it helps to restore harmony in a disharmonious world. Let's face it, we're exposed to things all the time, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. And most of these things we can't experience through our senses because it's outside of that range of what we can experience. So we can't experience EMF fields. We can't experience Wi-Fi, but it's having an impact upon us and a negative impact upon us. So what we want to do is that we want to restore that harmony in our biofield. And as a result, what opens up? Well, higher levels of consciousness, improved memory, focus, but more so the other aspect, which is really important, our sixth sense, our intuition, our creativity, those things associated more with the right brain or the feminine aspect, but also the memory and the focus, the linear left brain side is also enhanced. In addition to that, we are like super biological computers. We're plugged into the ultimate super internet, wireless. We have access to all the information that we need to take our lives to the next level, but not only that, but to self-heal, to restore harmony and balance to the physical aspect of our body. And it is absolutely a necessity to get in tune and in harmony so that we can begin to access that information, which of course is also going to impact us on a consciousness, a mental, emotional, and spiritual level, and a physical level.
Are you familiar with the terminology scalar energy? Have you ever heard that?
I have.
Okay. Is this, would you categorize this as that type of energy, or is it something different?
I have had people who have categorized it. I personally have not, but this is what other people have told me. But I've heard it called different, there's all kinds of different terminology, but I am familiar with scalar energy. And I have certainly had people that have informed me that this is the energy that's coming through the music and through the work that I do.
I've tested using the strength test, probably at least 300-400 people already over there in the last year at least. And and every single person passes. The test is consistent. Now, there's only been one person that I've tested in the last over a year now who tested strong in the beginning to where I couldn't tip him over from the beginning. And so there was no noticeable difference in the end. But I've tested muscular, athletic guys who are several feet taller than me to little old ladies who are 4 feet tall and frail. And they all tip over with the exception of the one guy in the beginning. And even the ladies who couldn't possibly withstand my weight. Some of them, I've put my entire weight into them, lifted one leg up in the air like you do in your one YouTube video, and it is consistent. And I love doing this demonstration because people who are new in the audience, it just blows their mind. And the ones who come up to volunteer they have this bewildered look on their face afterwards, and they just can't comprehend it. And it's an excellent way for me to demonstrate to the average mindset that the world is not what we, everything that we have thought it was, and that there is something outside of that realm, and it's a great demonstration to do that. So I find I find that to be very valuable. But my question to you is, I know that when you turn the music off, the effect goes away, and so is there any residual effect that remains? And we've had effects psychologically. I mean, I did an event a while back, and a new guy came to the event, and there was a very heated political discussion going on, which wasn't supposed to happen, but it happened nonetheless. And afterward, and I had your music playing in the background. I didn't tell anybody why I was playing this music. They didn't even know who you were. And at one point, a woman said, "Can you turn the music down a little bit?" And I said, "Well, there's a reason why I'm playing it." And I explained why. And the new guy in the audience said, "Would that be why I didn't jump out and strangle that guy who was talking about politics? Because normally I would be getting into a shouting match, but I just didn't feel like it." And so there is this psychological effect that we've noticed, and I've had a number of teachers and counselors also use it on their students, and they've had remarkable results where children who have extreme emotional issues going on, they'll play the music and they calm down and they're perfectly content. And so it has a lot of applications. But what I'm wondering is, are there any effects once the music's turned off, or do you have to play it 24/7 like I was doing for a while, and I still do sometimes in my house?
It is an ongoing process. We're in the process of really shifting our energy and moving up what I call the cosmic radio dial. We're never done, no matter where you are. The dial goes on forever. So it's a process over time. It is true that there are immediate effects with the music playing and when it doesn't play. But over time, what I found in my own experience and through testimonials and feedback from people is that in essence, it helps them to continue this process of restoring harmony in their lives. It's an ongoing process. So the best analogy that I have that really kind of really brings it down to earth what's going on here is that there was an analogy I heard about transcendental meditation, about meditation in itself. And it was an Indian gentleman that was talking about it. And I forget what the pieces are called of cloth that people wear on their heads, a turban, I guess. And they have a process where they stick it in dye. And each time that they stick it in the dye, it captures a little bit of the color. And over time, through continuing to submerge into this dye, eventually the turban will achieve the desired color. And this is the same effect of what's taking place with the music. It is an ongoing, accumulative aspect. We're never done moving up that dial, to, I guess, what the common terminology is, raising our vibration or shifting into higher levels of consciousness. It is to assist in that process. And each time that we play the music, we restore and capture a bit more of harmony. In addition to that, I also teach people how they can use the music, and there are ways that you can keep yourself in harmony 24/7, whether the music is playing or not. And I do, monthly support calls where I educate people on how to do that. And it's actually very interesting. We practice it here all the time. We energize our water with the music. And we play music to the water in the morning and in the evening. And what I've noticed through the testing is that the water captures the resonance and the vibration of the music. And then you can drink the water and you can maintain your state 24/7.
I want to back up for a second and talk about the water. From what I understand, it seems like whatever frequencies your body is most exposed to are the frequencies your body takes on. So I was curious if you were listening to the music and drinking the water that had the frequencies of the music instilled in it, would that be kind of like a double effect for your body as far as balancing it and keeping it balanced?
Well, here's the key, though, and this is what that always kind of, people, what? You have to tell the music to go into the water. Okay, I know that sounds a little silly, but you have to set the intention. You have to have the intention of putting the music into the water. And I'll give you an example. So when I first discovered that I could do this, I took a glass of water and I held it up to the speaker while the music was playing. So in essence, my intention was what? Was for the music to go into the water. Okay. Now I've also done lots of live events, and there's people in the audience who have water bottles. Okay. I can bring somebody up from the audience, have them drink their water bottle. They tip over. Okay. They get all the typical pre-music response. Okay. Then I take my player or whatever, and I hold their water bottle up to the speaker, or not even to the speaker really. And in essence, with the intention of the music to go into the water. Then I have them drink the water again and turn off the music, of course, and they have all the physiological responses. They don't go weak with a cell phone in their field. They don't. There's more than the balance test. The balance test is just testing balance. Remember, we want to check all 5 physical factors. And sometimes things, when people, I tested a hockey player who spent his whole life, developing balance. So I couldn't tip him over because the guy was solid. So, in essence, you can program the water with the music, but you have to tell it to program it.
That's absolutely fascinating. Regarding the hockey player, have you ever had any other athletes listen to your music while either working out or actually performing their sport?
Absolutely. That's really where it all initially had started. And athletes would energize their water with the music and participate in their events. And here's the cool thing is I have scientific research coming out. I just got a study sent to me with a gentleman, a physicist, who ran a study on athletes performing track. And what they noticed was when they were in their harmonious, energized state, that there would be a 5 to 7% increase in their performance and results through being in tune and in harmony. And so there's really a lot of scientific evidence and information that's coming out, which I think is fascinating. The old, left brain corporate part of me loves that kind of stuff, that actually supports of what happens when we're in tune and harmony.
Mark, do you think Mozart and Beethoven used their music in a similar way, but perhaps because they didn't have the scientific testing available at the time, they were unaware that they were doing that?
Well, they certainly did. Let's face it, there's lots of brainwave entrainment, for example, where certain beats and pulses of music create a frequency response in the brain. And there is definite scientific information that talks about the Mozart effect and the effects upon brainwaves and how it can help children in their development. There are absolute benefits to that music without a doubt. Now, interestingly enough, was a scientist that discovered the frequencies in my music had actually tested numerous recordings of Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, and they didn't get all the physiological responses. It wasn't shielding people from the effects of energy interrupters. But there are definite certain advantages to listening to high vibration music. And a lot of that was really discussed in the book Power versus Force, where there was actually calibration done on different types of music and how certain forms of music would give energy and raise a person's energy, and certain forms of music would take energy away and bring them down. So there certainly is an element of, music in itself and the benefits.
And I want to direct our listeners to your website, markromeromusic.com. There are a lot of great articles on the articles page, but there's one in particular, Change Your Life and Vibration Through Music. And it gives a great background of what we're talking about. And for perhaps the listeners that are new to this material or coming from a place, Mark, that you were coming from 11 years ago, it really catches them up to speed.
Cool, thank you. I have to go back and read it now. It probably needs to be updated.
And one last question. What were your musical influences that made you pick up a guitar in the first place? You mentioned Pink Floyd, but what were the others?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to date myself now. So, okay, well, definitely David Gilmour on the guitar, Pink Floyd, absolutely. I was a big Led Zeppelin head back in the day. I loved Jimmy Page's electric guitar. Later, I got into Santana, more of a different style of electric guitar playing. So I used to play a lot of rock, a lot of electric guitar back in the day. And then as I grew older, I guess, my music taste began to change. I started getting into, some Al Di Meola and Paco de Lucia and started playing jazz. I studied jazz for a couple of years in school and kind of incorporated that. But I think what really kind of shifted me was my mom sent me a recording of the Romeros in concert with a full string orchestra. So this was a family of four, 3 sons and 1 dad playing Spanish classical guitar. So I started studying Spanish classical, and then from there got into flamenco. And then really over the last 5 years, I've kind of taken those influences of, Otmar Liebert and, different people like that and kind of melded them into my own style. So there's been a lot of different influences along the way.
Actually, what you were talking about, athletes, I personally experience, and I don't know if this is how you've noticed athletes are experiencing the music, but about a little over, maybe a year and a half ago, or I don't know, when I first came across your music, I was taking a yoga class for the very first time. I'd never taken yoga, and we just started offering yoga through our parent organization, Flower of Life, and so I'm in this yoga class with other people who have been taking yoga for a while, and I was getting into these positions, and it didn't really seem like any big deal to me. I was playing your music in the background through the class, and everyone was looking at me and asking me, how are you getting into these positions? You've never taken yoga before? And I said, no. And they're asking me, is it hard to do? And I said, no. It just didn't seem like it was difficult to do some of these like headstands and a variety of things. And I didn't really consider myself to be athletic. But it seemed like it enhanced my physical strength and stamina to where I could do all of these things that more advanced people who've been doing yoga for a while could do, and I wasn't exhausted as a result of it. Is that one of the side effects that you noticed?
Absolutely. So strength, flexibility, endurance, coordination, and balance, those can come into play in so many different avenues, whether it's yoga. I think yoga, it's really because you're moving through postures and you're holding postures, you really get to experience it, as opposed to like if you're running or playing tennis or something like that, where there's a lot of motion and quick shifting. But I practice yoga myself, and I find it being tremendously beneficial, especially when it comes to doing the arm poses, headstands, one-legged tree poses, and things to that effect. As far as in enhancing that balance, the strength, and I think you really hit it on the head with the endurance. And interestingly enough, this is where I when I came out with the music and started putting it out there, I started getting testimonials and feedback across the board. Everything from people trying to improve their yoga or their athletics, people who were noticing the difference with their kids and playing music in the environment and how they seem to be more centered and focused and balanced. And then I started really getting some interesting feedback from people with children with autism or parents with Alzheimer's, and how they were noticing a difference not only on a physical level, but in a mental coherence level. So I really started seeing some, interesting feedback. And then, of course, there was even more interesting feedback. I had people calling me up going, oh, I just had a hysterectomy. I made the surgeons play the music while they operated on me. I feel great. And all the surgeons want CDs because they said it was the first time that they'd done a procedure that long and didn't have any of the, stiffness in the back and the neck from being hunched over working on somebody's insides for a prolonged period of time. So I really started to get, all kinds of things. I even had a guy who swears, jumps ups and down, tells me it's the next Viagra, He's going strength, flexibility, endurance, coordination, and balance. Hey, I lit some candles, made my wife dinner, played your music. He goes, it was amazing. So I'm like kind of going, hey, honey, I'm gotten some interesting testimonial feedback. She's like going, what do you got that music playing all the time for? So no, so really just across the board, all kinds of different experiences coming in.
I remember in one of your YouTube videos, you talked about something you did on stage where you took a bag of crackers. Was it on stage or was it in the park? I can't remember, where you took a bag of crackers and you charged them up and you gave it to the lady. Can you tell that story? I found that really fascinating.
I have to preface this before I tell this story, is that, people like go, oh yeah, you just walked into this. It was easy and effortless for you. And I tell you, this has been the hardest, most challenging shift into what I'm doing today from where I was. And because, I never wanted to get involved in, what I thought back then was the, woo-woo energy stuff. Okay. That was not part of my vision. Okay. I had a very distinct vision. I was going to become the next, successful motivational speaker, and I was going to change people's lives and help them on their journey through, pontificating my wisdom and the 7 steps to life mastery. Well, that wasn't necessarily the case. So, I remember my wife, Lara, was pregnant with our first daughter, 8 months, and let's face it, month 8, things are cramped, crowded, mom's in misery. And at 7 o'clock every night, Olivia would be in there doing her calisthenic routine, and mom would be on the bed in extreme discomfort, using colorful metaphors, how she wasn't going to be able to make it another 4 weeks till the baby was due. And so she asked me one night, she says, would you put your hand on my tummy? So I did, and it would be like instant peace and quiet. And after like a week of this, week straight, every night, 7 o'clock at night, Olivia's exercising, hand on tummy, instant peace and quiet. She goes to me, she goes, you're a healer, don't you? And my response was, you know what? Don't talk to me about that healing mumbo jumbo stuff, man. That's the kind of stuff they take you out in the backyard, they tie you to a tree, and they set you on fire, man. I said, I don't want nothing to do with anything like that. And she goes, don't you think that's kind of an overreaction? No. And she goes, I think you might have some past life issues to resolve. And I always say this, if you ever want to freak out a corporate guy, you tell him that he has past life issues to resolve. So that at that point sent me down the hallway with my arms flailing up in the air. So it really was a process to step into this whole work of doing transformational work through music and energy. So, and needless to say, I think you mentioned it earlier, Dr. Lara has always kind of been pushing my buttons. And so one day she calls me from the park, 1.5 miles away. She's at the park with the kids. And she goes, I just got this really strong intuitive hit. I'm like kind of on the other line going, oh no, man, here it comes. She goes, I want you to send energy to my friend Candace here. I said, well, what do you want me to do? Like play guitar on the phone or something? She goes, no, I want you to remotely send energy. And I'm like kind of going, okay. So I sent energy. And 1.5 miles away, she's over there doing the physiological tests with her friend, the ones that you were talking about earlier. And she goes, oh my God. She goes, you just harmonized her energy field. She had all the increases in energy, not going weak with the cell phone, the whole shot. She goes, this is absolutely amazing. And I'm like kind of going, whoa, that kind of freaked me out a little bit. She goes, hey, I've got these crackers here. She goes, can you send energy to the crackers? I just want to try this out. So I send energy to the crackers. Then she gives this cracker to another lady there at the park and does all the tests. She goes, oh my God. She goes, the crackers totally shifted her energy. This poor woman's like going, what kind of cracker is that? I've never had a cracker, that could, instantly increase my strength, my endurance, my coordination, balance, etc. And she goes, you just remotely sent energy. And I'm like kind of going, this is kind of freaking me out. I swear I didn't tell anybody that story for like a year after that happened, just because it was beyond my comfort zone. So that was when I really discovered, and I started doing different tests and realizing that my voice also conveyed these energy frequencies, and that it could be remotely sent or done through hands-on work. And that's when I started realizing, well, okay, it's not necessarily just the guitar. Yeah, it was nice. It's, handmade in Spain and all that cool stuff. And I literally did think for years it was the guitar itself, until I realized that whether I was playing a different guitar or not, it didn't matter. It still conveyed the same energy frequency. And then, of course, I took recordings of the voice and different things like that and was getting the responses. And then, being able to remotely send energy or to do hands-on work to restore harmony in somebody's biofield. So it really kind of opened up to a whole nother level of the work that I really wasn't aware of. And quite honestly, kind of a little bit uncomfortable with it at first, but yet I was kind of fueled by this curiosity to learn more and understand more of just what was capable of doing this work and what could really help open up for people.
Yeah, you and I have a similar history. I've spent most of my life in the business world, and now I'm primarily focused in consciousness and that sort of thing as well. Have you had any permanent effects, healing effects as a result of this music, such as you mentioned earlier, people had a variety of health issues that were remedied by playing the music, but what happens when the music is turned off? Does the effect on health remain?
It's a progression. So here's what I find that commonly happens is that people, and it really kind of opens up into the second level of the work, which I'll share about here in a second, was that things would start to open up. So for example, let's use the example of health. Better yet, I'm going to share the very first experience that I had with a woman who came to me with a very common issue. I keep attracting the same kind of man in my life. For 10 years now, the same guy shows up in different form. Doesn't matter, he shows up. And so I got this idea. I said, we're having a discussion. I could tell she was holding on to a lot of resentment, and it ended up being directed towards her father. I said, what, I'm going to compose you a piece of music. I want you to play it in your environment. Let's see what begins to open up for you. And so the piece was entitled Forgiveness. And so I sent it to her. She played it in her environment on and off, during the course of the day when she could. And, it wasn't something she could play 24/7. But she called me up 2 days later, really quite frantic. She goes, "You're not going to believe this, Mark." And I said, "What's up?" She goes, "My father called me today out of the blue. And he said, 10 years is way too long to have unresolved issues. Are you open to sitting down and talking about reconciliation and forgiveness?" And she said, "You don't understand. My dad's like macho man guy. He would never do anything like that." And I said, the thing that we all need to realize and wake up to is that our outer world, including our health and our relationships in our lives, the experiences around us, are all manifestations and reflections of ourselves. Through this energy and through this work with the music and your intention and willingness to change, you were able actually to change your resonance, your broadcast. Everything, every thought, every belief, every perception that we hold creates a resonance, in essence, a sound. The field hears that sound and responds accordingly and gives us the opportunity to experience ourselves through our life experience and also through our health and well-being. And so really, in essence, she shifted her energy. And what opened up? An opportunity to heal something that absolutely needed to be healed before she was ever going to be able to create that healthy relationship. So what I find that does open up is that people get to go on this journey, this unfolding. It's kind of like the image that comes in my head is the flower blossoming. It's never done. It continues the process. We can even go to the lotus flower that continually blossoms and unfolds. And the same thing happens with us. And so the biggest thing that I find is that people start having shifts and changes in their lives. My wife, Dr. Lara, never liked working out in the gym. This was like the last person that would ever go lift a weight or go do jump roping or whatever. She just did not like that whole aspect. And so she'd been working with the music, playing the music. And next thing I know, what is she doing? She's like jump roping and lifting weights and working out. I'm like going, "What's up with it? Who are you? And what did you do to my wife?" And she goes, "I don't know what it is." She goes, "But my resistance to doing what I felt that I needed to do to restore, better health in my life, which was to get more activity, more exercise in, eat better quality foods." We see the shifts unfold over time. So it's not like, just because the music is off, like I said, back to the analogy of continuing to dip that cloth into the dye, it builds up over time and sets in motion to things showing up in your life that are going to assist you on the journey to bringing your life to a whole nother level, to evolving your life to a whole nother frequency, so to speak. And those are really the biggest shifts and changes. I have different tools, different modalities, different things that show up in my life that continue leading me on this process, on this journey to enlightening myself, to attaining higher levels of consciousness, to more powerfully and effectively supporting people, to making my dreams come true. And this is what really begins to unfold through working with the music, whether it's on or off. It's something that really kind of continues this momentum process of moving forward in one's life.
Is this ability that you have with healing and with music unique, or is it something that you think anybody can do, or is it something you were born with? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's funny because Doc, he used to tease me because he had never, he didn't figure out how I had accessed these frequencies. And he says, somehow, he goes, you access them from this side, which I thought was an interesting comment. And because he used to tease me, he said, yeah, he goes, you were probably at some Pink Floyd concert, smoking funny cigarettes. He goes, I don't know how you managed to do this. And so it was really kind of a mystery at first. And then I realized later that, I could teach people how to access this energy. I do teach people how to access this energy so that they can become conduits for the same energy, kind of like, people get, taught on how to do Reiki. Well, people can be taught on how to work with the energy that I call vibrational success and express it through their lives, through their voices, through their products, services, however it is that they express themselves. And so that opened up to a whole nother level. At the time that I was working with the scientists, they had discovered a woman that sang and a guy that played harp that had these same frequencies. And I assume there's other people out there also. And I think it really is, part of this model. It's like life is supporting us to move forward and expand into the next higher expression of who and what we are. So people like yourself, all of us, come with our own special gifts and abilities that fit into this beautiful puzzle that are going to assist humanity in lifting itself to the next level of its expression. So my job is to take this energy, express it through the avenues that I express through, to help others to work with the same energy and express it through their avenues in the overall vision of restoring harmony in the world. Because how things could change in our world and in our lives if we were to be more harmonious, if we were to restore harmony and balance. I mean, we would play beautiful music. Imagine a world that came together as a fine-tuned symphony orchestra. That's the vision that I'm holding on to. And I look at it as I have a piece in the puzzle to help people to accomplish that. So it is something that's not inherently unique to myself. Others do have it, and others can be taught how to access it and how to work with it and express it through their lives.
You mentioned before in a call that I had with you a workshop that you taught a while back, and I think you only taught it once because it kind of
freaked me out.
Freaked you out, yeah. Yes. Well, our audience is receptive to those kinds of things, and that's exactly what fascinates me most is those sorts of topics, because it really stretches the mind as to what is possible and what's becoming possible for us as human beings. And what I found especially fascinating was the result where the effect of the music went back in time. So and the story with the flashlight and all these kinds of things. Can you kind of tell that what took place in that class and some of the results that you got for the people?
It's so funny. I'm laughing because I remember even when we talked about this, I still was processing through my freak out about it. It's like, so 3 years ago, I go and I do these 2 live events and I promote this program because I realized that I could teach people how to work with this energy. So I had 20 people sign up and I did a 2-day program here in Southern California 2.5 years ago. And so day 1, I had my little portable recorder and I had everybody introduce themselves individually and why they were there. So I had captured all these voice recordings before the program even began. And so I then took those recordings and I demonstrated, through all the physiological tests, that nobody's voice was shifting anybody's energy. So then we go through the process in day 1. I take them through the process. Day 2, first thing in the morning, I take that same recording that I recorded before day 1 and I play everybody's voice And sure as heck, everybody's voice is now shifting energy. So people are like going, oh, wait a second. How could that be? You recorded that before we went through the process. How could that also be shifted? And I say, you know what? Time is a product of our perception. On a quantum level, there is no time. There is no, past, present, future. There is only the present moment. So in essence, through going through this process, everybody's voice changed, and a recording that was recorded, the day before we even started doing all the work, everybody's voice shifted energy. And so we really kind of go, oh, it really kind of confounded us because we've been so entrenched in this whole concept of time. And that really kind of shattered that whole myth. And we started realizing, whoa, time is a perception thing. It's a byproduct of our mind. And so the second day, we started working with the energy, taught them how to work with it. And we started energizing things. And you mentioned about the flashlight, which I thought was one of the cool stories. There's a gentleman, his name was Dennis. He was a rocket scientist from Boeing, really into quantum physics and energy. So he was like in heaven in this whole class. And so I told people to bring things that you want to energize. That was one of the things. So on the second day, people brought all kinds of things. So Dennis brought a flashlight and light bulbs and some crystals. And so he energized his flashlight, and then anything that he shined that flashlight on would automatically be restored into a state of harmony and balance. Anything that he took that light bulb and he would plugged it into his lamp at home, and he had people there in his home, okay, and he did all the tests before. He turned on the light, and everybody instantaneously had the increase in strength, flexibility, endurance, coordination, and balance. People were like blown away. He was blown away. And he told me how he would like shine the flashlight on his plants at home to help optimize their growth. I used to tease him. I said, man, I know your wife's like going in the middle of the night. What are you doing shining that flashlight on me? Oh, nothing, honey. So we would have some fun around it. Some of the other things that we, energized, we energized landing pages on websites. We energized clothing. So there was a lady who had a sweater, okay, and she energized the sweater. And I did the test, and everything tips over, goes weak with the cell phone, the whole shot. I put the sweater on her shoulder, strong as an ox, no weakness with the cell phone. And just to kind of preface this, your body will always go weak with an energy interrupter in its field, like a cell phone, like, a cloth with furniture polish or whatever. Any kind of chemical will make the body go weak. With this sweater on her shoulder, man, she's strong, not going weak with anything. Take it off, weak again, all the same physiological responses. So we really started, playing with it and doing interesting things. The highest gradient test was I took somebody who had a cell phone and they go weak with the cell phone. I energized a text on my cell phone, texted that individual. That phone then no longer made anybody go weak. It no longer compromised their energy. So I've had phones now that have been energized for 6 months to a year later, and they still don't make people go weak. The body is able to maintain harmony and balance in the energetic field, even when using a cell phone with no music playing and nothing else in the environment. So we really, really pushed everybody's belief structures, including my own. And so you mentioned it earlier. I kind of went home. I shelved that whole seminar, threw it up in my closet. I said, I'm not sure I should be doing this. And I haven't done it since. And so it's just funny that you bring this up because all these synchronicities started coming here in the last, really here recently to rebirth that program. In fact, I talked to one of the ladies that was in the program and she goes, oh my gosh, she goes, I never told you. She goes, I called my sister who lives in Shanghai in China on Skype. I had her husband do the physical test on her, and she tips over and goes weak with a cell phone. She goes, I then sent her energy through the call, and she had all the instant shifts in her energy. She goes, I was able to energize somebody on the other side of the world instantaneously. She couldn't get her head around it. So even with those, this is after the fact, following up with these people 2 years later, And I got a chance to talk to Dennis, who was my rocket scientist, quantum physicist. And I said, Dennis, I shelved this program after I did it. He was like blown away. You did? He's like laughing at me. I said, yeah, it really kind of freaked me out. He said, man, he goes, you need to bring this out. He said, people need to learn and realize that everything out there is pliable, malleable, and programmable. He said, this is about stepping into the next level of empowerment. He said, the next level of empowerment is going to be coming through energy, through restoring harmony and balance, through learning how to work with the quantum field and to create what it is that we have the ability to create and what it is that we desire to create. So I said to him, so in other words, you're telling me I should do this program again? He said, yes, absolutely. So I actually set a date for I set 2 dates in September and November to do the activation program here in Southern California and to take people through the process. And where 2.5, 3 years ago, people would look at me with kind of like a deer in the headlight stare, not really getting it. Now people are, oh man, I need to learn how to do this. This could help me in my chiropractic work. This could help me in teaching yoga classes. This could help me in doing the body work that I do with people, or adding it to my products, my services, the products that I create. Now I can energize them and to further help people restore harmony in their lives.
Now, I know that you create custom music for individuals and also for audiences when you're on a call with however many people. You create a custom soundtrack or music for the people on the call. Now, how does that work? If I assume you're going to be playing some music for the listeners of this show, but you have no way of knowing who's going to be the listeners of this show. Who is going to be listening to the show. How does that work, that you can create music that is specifically for the audience and what their unique needs are in this case?
Well, this kind of opened me up to the second level of the work. The first work was about restoring harmony in the biofield and null and voiding the negative, energy interrupters and things that put us out of tune in our lives. One day I was in the office with Doc, and he asked me the question, Mark, what do you think is the most powerful energy interrupter of them all? And, I'm thinking gamma radiation, X-rays, something cool like that. And he said, no, he goes, the most powerful energy interrupter of them all are the limiting thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions and stories that we have created about life, about the world, about ourselves. Those are the most powerful energy interrupter of them all and shape and shifts our lives. So this really, the answer surprised me and really kind of launched me off on getting an understanding of consciousness and really engaging in books like The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton, Power versus Force, and a number of just different pieces about how it is that we create and manifest, how our thoughts, our beliefs, and our perceptions shape and shift our lives. So from this, I kind of got the idea, well, heck, man, if this music can null and void energy interrupters in the environment, why would it not also null and void the energy interrupters in our heads, when after all, the environment is just an extension of who and what we are. It's only our senses that tell us that we're separate from it, but yet it is all one field of energy. There is no separation. This is one of the biggest illusions that's been placed upon us. So that's when I started composing pieces with different intentions behind them, self-love, self-worth, self-confidence, hormonal balance, forgiveness, clarity, creativity, just an assortment of different pieces that I started building a library and prescribing them to my coaching clients and eventually putting them into series and incorporating them in my live events when I work with people. I do these healing circles where I help people shift past the limiting thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions that are holding them back from creating extraordinary lives. So I take them through these processes and play these different pieces of music. So what I've discovered is like creativity, for example, could be listened to by anybody and began to create that resonance within their energetic field. Anytime that people work with these pieces, you have to set an intention, the user does. Absolutely very important. We live in a free will universe. I once had a woman send me a note saying, is there any way you could play a song and make my husband a better man? And I said, well, you know what? I could play the best song in the world, but if your husband doesn't want to become a better man, it's not going to matter. So this is a symphony, a relationship between the two, between the listener's intention and the vibration and the resonance of the music. Now, people ask me, well, you know, how does this work? Can you give me an example? Can you bring it down to earth? And I said, you know what, I can. I go, there's these really cool headphones that you can listen to on an airplane. You know, let's face it, at 35,000 feet, there's a lot of noise in that airplane. But these headphones, you put them on and you can't hear the airplane. All you hear is the music. Now, why does that work? How does that work? Well, that headphone actually listens to the environment and determines what the sound is, what its frequency is. It then creates an offsetting frequency that cancels out the noise. So what happens when +4, something vibrating at +4 and something vibrating at -4 meet? They cancel each other out. So this was when I learned that you could create different resonance and frequencies of energy, put them through these different pieces of music, and cancel out the negative broadcast in people's heads. And as a result, things would show up and shape and shift in their outer world to bring them the pieces, the breadcrumbs, the steps that they needed to take to create the lasting change in their lives. So it really kind of opened up to really a whole new level of work in assisting people in transforming their lives. I want to read a quote to you, because for years, if you ever want to torment a corporate guy, you give him a gift and no instruction book on how to use it. And so that was really my case. There was many years I asked the question, what is this for? How does this work? Why? How do I bring it out into the world? How does it fit in with what's going on in the world today? And one day I'm listening to this guy on a video. Somebody sent me a video, and I'm listening to the video, and he says this quote. He said, people think we need to seek enlightenment. He said, no, we are enlightened. That is our natural state. The unnatural state is what we have been put into. We don't have to seek enlightenment. We have to remove the vibrational barriers and limiting belief systems that have held us in a state of unenlightenment. It's not about seeking it. It's about removing what is stopping us from being what we already are. And I heard that quote and I'm like going, oh my God. I got the full body shivers and the whole shot. I'm like going, that's what I'm doing. Through this energy work, through this music, is helping people rise above the vibrational barriers, the stuff in our environment, but also helping them to rise above the limiting belief systems that we've all encoded into the operating system software of our minds that is shaping and shifting our experience. Through energy, through vibration and resonance, you can cancel out the negative broadcasts, the disempowering broadcasts, the stories of lack, limitation, not good enough, I don't deserve, all the different things that we've incorporated into ourselves. So what? So that we can move up that cosmic radio dial and begin to tune into new frequencies of possibility. We've been living at 88.5 for way too long. And let's be honest, the programming at 88.5 is pretty disharmonious. What would open up if we could move to 92.7, 100.3, 107.8, 5,000,000.6? This is the name of the game. It's all about evolving and taking our life to a whole nother level. And this is just a tool in a world of many that are coming available to us today to help assist people in moving up that dial, tuning into new possibilities. My own personal belief is this, is that the more that we move up that dial, eventually we won't receive the broadcast of all the discordant frequencies in our energetic field. I think the more that we move up, the day we won't see people suffering from conditions like diabetes, cancer, all those. Why? Because they broadcast at 88.5, but if we're up here at 95.5, we don't receive what's being broadcasted at 88.5. So we're able to tune into a whole new possibility. So I think this is really why everything that's coming in, all the energy works, releasing old karmic debts, all the different things that are coming in are all about enlightening ourselves so that we can move up that dial and tune into new possibilities. And eventually, all the discordancy that we see in the world through political systems, banking systems, chemicals, Monsantos of the world, non-supportive food, all those different, things, eventually we're not going to be able to receive that broadcast. And that's what I'm holding the space for. I could be completely way off, but to me that resonates as truth. And that's what I'm dedicated to, providing all the different tools and resources to helping people to continue to move up that dial so that they can tune into the new stations and restore harmony. When we restore harmony, we play beautiful music. When we play beautiful music, we create more successful and fulfilling lives.
So it sounds like you are very optimistic about the future of the world in terms of growth of consciousness and that we're heading toward a more empowered and peaceful society. You mentioned GMO foods, and I want to try to put the earlier idea you mentioned about charging crackers and water and so on. So do you believe that we could intend to charge, say, GMO corn, and so that it has a positive effect on us versus a negative? Or they're spraying chemtrails in the skies these days. So can we intend to make that a positive effect versus a negative? And have you ever experimented with these?
Ethan, you're like on it, man. I have experimented with that. Now, I haven't been able to actually experiment with the chemtrail. They're pretty high up there. But you know what? Anytime I see them up in the sky, I send energy. Is it having the effect on it? I think it's completely possible. There is no separation. There is no chemtrail separate from us. It's only our mind as a perception. So I think it can. Now, here's an interesting story. I brought a jar of popcorn, okay? Genetically modified popcorn. So interesting. My father-in-law is actually a corn farmer in Iowa and grows GMO corn. He's completely clueless about the whole thing. He doesn't have any understanding whatsoever about GMO and its implications. That's really interesting. So I took this jar of popcorn and I was doing applied kinesiology testing with people, and everybody goes weak with a jar of popcorn. I don't want to say the brand's name, but it's one of the big brand names you find on a regular grocery store. Everybody goes weak with it. Send energy to the popcorn, redo the test. Nobody's going weak with the popcorn. Now, I'm still not the guy that's probably going to go pop that corn and go eat it, but to me, that tells me that it's possible to program something that is bad for us. As it indicates with applied kinesiology, with muscle testing, makes everybody go weak. Well, send energy to it. It's not making people go weak anymore. So to me, that's like, So anytime that we go out to dinner, let's face it, we're exposed to things all the time. Hey, I'm energizing everything, sending energy to everything. Same thing with tap water. Tap water makes people go weak. Energize it, doesn't make them go weak anymore. It doesn't mean I'm going to go drink tap water, but let's face it, we're exposed to mist from sprinklers or whatever. We're exposed to things. So it is possible to shift things. And this is part of what I think that we all need to wake up to. We're not victims of circumstances. We're creators of circumstances. And we can change what is out picturing in our life, whether it's just as simple as more harmonious relationships or prosperity in our lives or better health, or null and voiding the negative effects of chemtrails, dysfunctional political systems and banking systems, whatever it might be. I think we're going to see these things begin more and more to fall away. In fact, in some ways, we already are. And I think as we continue more to restore harmony, get people in tune with their energy, begin to restore harmony in the lives of others, we can create a harmonious world. And I go back once again to the analogy of the symphony orchestra. Right now in our world, everybody has a different sheet of music, playing an instrument that's out of tune, and nobody's playing the same sheet. Well, what if we could restore harmony in that? What if we could bring that symphony together? What could we possibly create together? And so I'm an optimist. I'm going to hold the space that it's possible for us to achieve that. Doesn't mean sometimes I don't get depressed or disappointed or scared or whatever, but I'm still committed every day to doing what I can and supporting other people and bringing forward what they're doing, to bring their music forward, their gifts forward to help humanity restore harmony and continue to move up that cosmic radio dial, I like to call it.
So you mentioned that you've done these experiments with GMO foods and you charge water and whatnot. So how does an ordinary person who doesn't have your ability achieve this result? Do we have to take your workshop, or is it as simple as playing your music while projecting the intention, or is it just something that only you can do?
Well, you can play the music in the environment. That's the overall goal. You can energize things with the music, which we discussed earlier with the water. And, we energize things all the time. This is another level, and I teach people how to do that. And so that they can energize whatever the heck they want to energize, at home. I energize anytime that we go out to dinner, I energize everything, the water, the food. Heck, I even send energy to my kids and my wife. If she's suffering from anxiety, I can do energy work on her and send her energy, and she can have dramatic decreases in her anxiety. Because sometimes she gets hormonal stuff, that she gets to deal with, and she has a tremendous impact. It has a tremendous impact and effect upon her. So I think, I'm still waking up to the possibilities, but I think this is something that we all can learn how to do. It's not something that's inherently mine and mine alone. In fact, it was so funny. I promoted the events coming up here, and this woman came up to me and she goes, wow. She goes, how come you're giving your gift away to other people where they can learn how to do this thing? I said, the whole idea of a gift is to give it away. What's the point of having the gift if you don't teach others how to have the gift themselves? And this is the thing we all need to realize. We're all expressions of one energy, one universe. Okay, there is no one that's better or worse than the other, or less involved or more involved than the other. You can't stand in the judgment of that, because you're judging yourself. There is only one expression of life. And so, I've come to my level of understanding. Is there more to learn? Absolutely. Is there more to evolve into and unfold into? You bet. Is there more stuff for me to dissipate and process through and work through? Yes, absolutely. I still get to have my challenges in life and and things, and I do the best that I can and work with the energy and keep myself in tune 24/7 and just recommit myself every day to bringing my music forward, my gift out into the world, and to support other people on bringing their gifts and their music forward in the world.
Is this something that you're going to be teaching at the conference? You do have a workshop, and now maybe after this call we're going to change that up a little bit. But is that something that you can teach people to have that ability to add their intention to different things like we just discussed?
Well, that's kind of an area that's in development. It's like I kind of see these different levels of the work. So really what the key thing is to support people in realizing that they are more than what it is that they experience in the mirror. And that by restoring harmony and balance in their biofield and in their energy, they can continue to progress their life to the next level. Certainly, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working on some of those limiting thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions that are shaping and shifting our lives. There's always a tremendous amount to be done there. We're never done. There's just as we thought we had worked through something, 10 years later, we go, oh my gosh, I have to work through this a little bit more. Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the game of life. So it really is a process. So, I look at it this way. In these events, what we do is we let go of what's not serving us, the lower density energy that's holding us back from unfolding into what we have the ability to unfold into. Then there's this other aspect of aligning ourselves with what it is that we do wish to create, manifest, and experience in our lives. It's an energetic process. I teach people how they can embed their information into their higher frequency ranges of themselves, how they can get all the answers, all the know-how, all the hows to bring that to fruition down on a physical level. And it's really it's a wonderful, interactive, energetic experience, and of course with lots of music.
So you promised us that you would play a little musical piece for our audience, so I'm going to let you do that now, and then we'll wrap it up afterward.
Sounds good. So, as I mentioned, what I'd like to do here is really provide everybody an opportunity to align themselves with what it is that they would like to create, what it is that they would like to manifest. It could be any aspect of your life. It could be through your health, it could be in the area of relationships, it could be in the area of prosperity. That's up to you. Spirituality. What does that look like for you? Let's just pretend, for example, that you have, the good old Harry Potter wand. You could wave it and boom, in 6 months, have whatever it is you would like to experience in your life, in your health, or whatever. Get connected to that. Set the intention to bring that to fruition. And while I play this piece, I want you to imagine all that you can imagine, but more importantly, feel all that you could feel. What would you feel if you had that better health? What would you feel if you were doing a livelihood that rocked and rolled your soul? What would you feel if you had that healthy, loving relationship or that dynamic, vibrant health? Get connected to that, visualize it, but more importantly, feel it. And we'll meet up on the other side of this piece. How does that sound?
That sounds fantastic.
Sounds great.
All right. So just take some nice, deep breaths. Just breathe in. So just take some nice deep breaths. So it's one thing to set intentions. And as much as I'd like to believe that we could just go home and sit down on the sofa and go and have it magically manifest in front of us, there is a co-play between the spiritual and the physical. We have to get off our posteriors and take a direction, a step in the direction of our dreams. So whatever it is that you visualized today, whatever it is that you got connected in, whatever it is that you felt, okay, what's the first step that you can take in that direction? What's the first thing that you could do? So maybe, your intention was to, have a size 32 waist and optimal, body weight or whatever. what's the first thing that you can do in that direction? Maybe it's going out for a walk. Maybe it's going to the gym and getting on the exercise bike. Maybe it's not, drinking that soda and eating a better quality food, or maybe drinking better quality water. Take that first step, whatever it is for you, and then look to see how life responds. So the reason why we visualize with this feeling aspect, that is how we submit our order into the cosmic kitchen. It's like when we go to a restaurant, we sit down, we look at the menu, all the things that we could possibly have. The waiter comes up and says, yes, can I take your order, please? Well, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this. No, we don't do that, but yet we do that in real life. So that's why it's really important to get connected to what it is that you wish to create and manifest, feel it, and through the process of feeling and visualization, we embed the information, that higher aspect of ourselves, of who and what we are. That higher aspect of ourselves then conveys all the know-hows, all the steps to take through what feels good. So take a step in the direction of your dream and your vision. Do what feels good, and you will eventually, over time, create and manifest what it is that you wish to create, manifest into your experience. So this is just a little vibrational boost to get you moving in that direction.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. Can you tell us where people can find you if they want to buy your music, or if they want to find out where you're speaking next, or any information you'd like to share about your work?
Sure, absolutely. You can go to markromeromusic.com. That's Mark with a K, Romero music.com. In fact, if you're interested, you can download like a free track of music, a little grounding guided visualization in combination with the music, some inspirational movies. You can go to markromeromusic.com/VIP, and you can sign up and kind of get a little sampling of what can open up for you when you work with the energy and with the music. So that's a great place to go to if you're interested in downloading some free gifts. And you can do that also from the homepage and get access to all of that. So I invite you to come and check it out and learn more about energy, learn some of the different tests that you can do. You can actually experience what the music does right there on the website. There's a video with the music play button and stuff, and grab some friends, have some fun, and experience it for yourselves.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. I'd like you to stay on the call with me afterward for just a minute. But thank you so much for joining us on this call today. And we are looking forward to having you out here October 11th through the 13th for our Awake And Empowered Expo here in Detroit, Michigan. So check out our website at awakeandempoweredexpo.com. Join our Facebook page, facebook.com/Awake And Empowered Expo. We will be giving away, Mark has generously offered to give away some CDs to our Facebook members, so stay tuned for that. And so we'll catch you real soon, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to coming out there and being part of the festivities.
Well, thank you.
The contents of this interview, or from Awake and Empowered Expo LLC from Ethann Fox and Flower of Life Center for Human Evolution, is for informational purposes only and does not necessarily reflect the viewpoints held by these organizations or individuals. Always consult with your doctor or health professional before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or prescription drug use. Please understand that you assume all responsibility and risk for the use or misuse of this information.